Hey, welcome back to Unclip. This is our first installment from the road. We actually made it. Technically, this is day two. I really wanted to do a day one video, but boy, was day one difficult and humiliating and stressful and tiring. And we ended up in a Walmart parking lot just for like 4 hours to sleep after moving out as much as we could. Um, we didn't get fully moved out, so we've left a mess for the landlord, which is just so stressful and frustrating. But I'm really happy to be done with that life now. Letting people down, disappointing, having my kids ruin things and get me in trouble for it. But now, as you can see, I'm out here in the woods, enjoying the verdant sounds of nature. Over yonder, you can now hear the tufted North American, pretty sure it's a pressure washer. I thought I'd just go ahead and start recording because I finally got around to it and that thing fires up. But normally, it's incredibly quiet. Literally hear birds chirping nonstop. If our cat's not meowing to get out and kill them. So it's just perfect here. It is just so nice, and it's such a good time. So this is our second day here. It's June 2nd, 2020. So calendar-wise, we've moved from murder hornets to riots. The county that we're in now requires masks for every store, which is I'm a little bit confused as to why, because this is an area where they were going to get to reopen a little earlier because it's so rural and they didn't have a lot of cases. But it feels like, even though we've been planning it a year ahead of time, incredibly good timing to be moving further out like this, and in the woods, and hopefully getting to know people around us and having a little tighter sense of community, even though we're going to be moving. We'll only be here for about 2 weeks. And we'll still have some of this, but I think that the spot that we have next is going to be a little more out in the open and less trees and more ocean. So that'll be fun. That's kind of part of the point of this whole thing is the adventure of it, the what's next. But I think that one will be, right now I've got that booked for about 6 weeks. It's down the Hood Canal a ways. And I think we'll just sit tight there for a while for all of this. There's so many things that need to settle down and blow over and heal and fix, and us too. Boy, this I'll show you the rig. That champ of a truck, boy. He just spit nails and fought his way here. It was only I think it's only like a 40-mile drive tops from where we moved out. But yeah, it's a little burden pulling this, and the space in this place is a little tight for 3 of us. But a lot of earlier channels have said, you just start with what you have. If you've got enough that you could do it, just do it. Just go. And we've got an underpowered vehicle pulling it. I got the propane going, as you saw. We do all the propane plumbing. I've taken a hot shower in the woods with the most pathetic water pressure ever, but damn, a hot shower is a nice thing to have all of a sudden. That was cool. Just felt so refreshing. So I've got that working. The stove works. I still have to fix the generator. That's the critical piece. It runs off propane. It's a critical piece in order for us to go boondocking, which is basically not plugged into a park. haven't fully tested the water pump, but it sounds like it goes for that. And of course, the furnace I knew was not working when I bought it, so I've got to work on that. I guess over the summer, get around to it. Even though we might replace this by then, still want it working if we're gonna keep it and park it somewhere, or give it to the kids, or just resale for having it work better. You can see this awning desperately needs to be replaced. That is just, well, especially that end, but up here it's coming apart. It's really ratty. But this park is 2 weeks in the peak of summer for $350. I think the next park is like that too, about $700 a month. That's all of the utilities and the rent. So that replaces about $2,500, as I said. So this is our first shift into that reality. So I think we'll probably, unless we have a lot of internet problems, which we could. It seems like their Wi-Fi is at the next park is the only thing that's going to really work. Our cell connections are just not strong enough. So I'll have to rely on that, which is a little bit nervous. But hopefully by then or soon after we get in there, I can get a cell booster. I've been watching people's feedback on that, and that one of them was, hey, we like to just go to where the bandwidth is when we know we need it. I'm going to need it every day, and I don't want to have to limit where we go because of it, even though I'll still have to. I still would be, well, we're not going to that national park. We're not going to go out there in the middle of Montana. We're going to have to, anchor up. So in places like this next one, where I think a stronger cell signal would, because we do get a connection. We do get internet. It's just I start to do my work and suddenly, video conferences are kind of jaggy and that kind of thing, and of course it's going to be really essential for my work for this to be seamless. I've just started to talk. I've been talking to my coworkers about it a few months ago, but I've just started to talk to my boss about it. Of course, he's just incredibly cool, but it's kind of an understood. This is my problem to solve. So it's kind of like I get to keep doing this as long as. Sorry about that. I don't have a good connection. Doesn't happen very often. So that's probably the biggest challenge. Making sure I've got good internet. But yeah, we stay at that place for 6 weeks, and so that's August. That's when I go back to school. Assuming I finish now, I've gotten a waiver because of everything that's going on to let me have more time to finish my last term. So all that goes well. I start back to school August 1st, and maybe by then we've got a new tow vehicle at least. With that, we would start to venture much further, maybe go to Oregon. And right now we're talking about Pennsylvania around from the end of October to the end of November to get Lisa's birthday and Thanksgiving together up there with family that's out that way. And that's going to require the tow vehicle. I won't take this clear across the country, this truck, but we'll get there soon. Anyway, it's been really interesting. I'm just trying to think of the things we've missed. So many things that have happened. Crazy stuff that when we went up to Walmart, some guy was just running and chasing and flailing, trying to flag me down as I pulled through. And he would not let up. And it was like, whatever it is, I need to get in my space and stop, and then you can ask whatever. And he just went ape on me and said, hey, they're coming in the morning. They're kicking everybody out. The cops are going to start towing people with you sleeping in it. I've scored this place up here in this flat area. where you can get in. You got to come up here. And so I thought, oh, all right, I'll just humor the guy. I'll go check it out. Maybe if I like it better, whatever. But I wasn't that worried about people coming and rousting us because we weren't trying to stay there. We were just trying to park there. And we were kind of conflicted. Should we drive up here at night? There's less traffic. That part would have been nice. I have a harder time seeing when I'm driving at night if there's headlights. So I think that kind of won out. I just realized the green stripe we added matches the truck a little bit. Maybe that's why this thing kind of has a flow to. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, but it sure looks better than the pink. Boy, what else? So much has happened. I think you've already maybe seen pictures. That's true. Not everybody's here. I've torn out a lot of furniture. Tore out the whole dining room and put my table in that I've always used as a desk. And then literally the last day we were moving out, we decided to go ahead and get this other cabinet system that's in the middle in the kind of living room area where AJ's room is. So that's a little bit torn apart, but we've got a lot more space in there now because of that. And we're just kind of in this phase of cleaning and organizing and pulling out bins of things that we shoved in real quick to deal with later and kind of going through them and going, need that, don't need that, don't need that. I think that's going to be a lot of this next 2 weeks is a process of kind of whittling and getting rid of even more stuff and maybe getting some sleep. As you can see, I am not rested. Not for this though. That just showed up just now, just for you. Otherwise, it's the woods. I mean, look at this. Look at this. This is where I live now. I mean, that's my roof. It's like Jeep out back and just woods. And I haven't even met anybody yet. The neighbors. So it's been really. I think some of the people here are full time. Handful of them. But I suspect when the weekend comes, there'll be more activity, kind of thing. It's getting kind of spun up, but so far so good. This has been really, really something else, and it's going to take a few days, I think, for it to sink in that we didn't just finally get to go on a vacation, which, boy, it's been a long time since we had a real vacation. Very long time. KJ was in the car seat for sure. It's going to take a while before we go. We live here. Wherever here is. That's gonna be interesting. Anyway, better get back to work. Thanks for coming along for the ride, and hopefully now updates are a little more frequent. This is really something else to be here from thinking about the first video where scratching my head and thinking about what kind of RV are we going to do, how are we going to do it, where just so many question marks and possibilities and everything, and it just collapses all the way down to here we are. This is what it is right now. What's beautiful about that is that it can just keep changing, or it can stay. We can just say, hey, we like this part. Well, I think one of the things I like about this whole RV is the payment choice. No payments. Definitely recommend the no payments thing. But you know what comes with that that's really kind of fun, I think, is if I had just dropped $90,000 on an RV and was having hundreds of dollars payments for it, nail biting, there's no way I'm taking a sledgehammer to the dining room. Not anytime soon. I would be like, it's the one, maybe if it were fitted factory aftermarket replacement, I'd be very nervous. This is just like, literally I've had to say, AJ, you can't hang a picture by running a 2-inch screw through the wall. The wall's only this thick. There's a screw sticking in the shower. He'd probably not be able to hear in that ear for a while if it had been a new RV. but it's like it didn't poke all the way through, and it's like kind of a goldenrod shower. So it's like it didn't hit me here. It didn't bring out the visceral rage. It was just like, dude, come on. So that's that's an advantage. I think that's a good way to start too, to have that stress reduced. Where okay, there's the stress of things not working quite right, but also there's not there's not much stress with screwing something up unless it makes it so that you can't do what you need to do. Um, just to live comfortably. Um, so that part's kind of fun. You can kind of mess with things and learn about stuff this way. So I would recommend that. I would recommend paying cash for one, as leaky and funky and not everything works as it is. You're going to learn more, and I think that stress reduction of not having the payment, which also locks you in a little bit. I mean, that's the other thing. if I'm working on a promotion at work, just happens to be, has nothing to do with this whole thing, but great timing. That should actually allow me to just continue doing this, of course. But if it didn't, or if there was some part of it that didn't, or we were finally feeling like, I don't know what we were thinking, that all the pictures look so beautiful, and it would be, but we're not disciplined enough, or whatever. We're not cut out for this. I'm not stuck with something that's $800 a month that I've got to try to figure out how to get rid of, how to save money, and how to get into some other place. I mean, we just save up money and whatever. We move to wherever we're going to move, and either sell it or park it or give it away or whatever. We're not stuck. I mean, I think that's the whole point of Unclip, is that we're not stuck to that rope. We're not stuck to that line. We're not stuck following that route. And that's why this is a lot less about full-time RVing, although that's the centerpiece because it's the mechanism. It's a lot more about kind of finding that maximum freedom, really letting ourselves go, letting ourselves be, letting ourselves kind of find the way that really feels right, that isn't in any playbook. It's not, here's what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is an entire world that's collapsing around us right now, of everybody doing what they were supposed to be doing, everybody following the system, everybody paying their taxes and showing up on time, commuting. I mean, there's just so many stupid fucking things that we do just because that's the way it's always been done, and that's what you're supposed to do. And I think it's long past time for us to start saying, question everything. That doesn't mean there's no wisdom. It doesn't mean no one in the past has ever figured anything out. But just because they said they did doesn't mean they did. Maybe they figured out, how best to organize a factory or a corporation or a sports team or something in a time when, well, look at this, man. I'm in the woods. And I'm talking to friends and family and hopefully strangers someday. It changes the reality. The foundations that we're standing on are very different now, and that means whatever wise person long ago figured out this is the way we should do things didn't have that available to them, and it's lazy of us to think that we don't have to reinvent how to live, to just let them do it. They figured it out 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 10,000 years ago. We'll just keep doing it that way. Well, they had to figure it out from something. They had to take their available resources and abilities and everything and suss out how to do things. Why don't we? Why don't we have to figure it out? I mean, everything's changed. The earth can't handle us the way we are. What are we doing? What are we doing following such old things that have been figured out by people who aren't here anymore? To say, it's like that, shout out to Miss Collins, story she told us. She told it first person, but I've heard it since. I know it's a common story, but it was in junior high, and our teacher, Miss Collins, some of you will know, it told us a story about the cooking the ham, the family traditional ham for Easter or whatever. And mom's teaching daughter how to do it. You always got to cut the ends off, get it in here, and you glaze it like that. You put it in for 45 minutes, you flip it over, you glaze it again. You show these instructions. So the little girl finally says, "Hey, Mom, why do you cut the ends off? I mean, it's kind of like crusty or whatever, but why? Why does it have to be cut off in order to cook it? Does that do something? Like, is it too sealed otherwise?" And she was like, "No, actually, your grandma just always did it that way." So she calls Grandma and says, "Grandma, why do we cut the ends off? Does that have a thing or whatever?" And Grandma just starts laughing, and she's like, "It's like Depression era pan that was like always just too small. I couldn't afford to replace it, so nobody likes the ends anyway. I just cut them off so it fit. Cut the ends off, you have a bigger pan." I think about that. Think about that kind of thing. I mean, that's funny. That's a silly little family thing. But we do that with global thermonuclear war. We do. I mean, we have 8-inch fucking floppies. We do some really old shit with big things like that, because no one stopped and called Grandma and said, "Do we still need a vacuum tube controller for this launch system? Or, we need to start growing up and taking charge and not just leaning on our predecessors to have figured out a world they don't live in, a world they couldn't have imagined. This is a world they couldn't have imagined, and we're expecting them to be right about how to live in it. No. For me, the right way to live in it now is unclipped. I don't have to stay on that line. It's more dangerous, in a way. In another way, I remember rock climbing once. Probably the most dangerous time I did. As I'd said before, I've never climbed clipped in. I've never had the gear. I've only had fake carabiners for keychains. I was climbing with a bunch of friends, 18. And they were all stoned. I'd never smoked pot at that time, so I didn't really know what stone did to you. Just made them funny. For the most part, they were fine. But somebody was climbing ahead of me. I think I can remember who it was, actually. I think I still know you, actually, if I think about it for a while. I'm not mistaken. It's funny. Anyway, he kicked loose a rock. And we were kind of going up a ravine where it's like, it's vertical, but like that. So you could kind of grab on either side and find a toehold. And it slowly got to where it was vertical, but there was big toeholds. I mean, it wasn't a very technical course. It wasn't like you had to really dig in by your fingernails. You could always find a good chunky ledge. But one of those was a rock that just came loose. It was about, bigger than my head. And all I could hear was like just that releasing kind of sound. And I look up, and that thing's coming right for my head, just straight at me. And I'm holding on to these hand grips, and I just push all the way back so that I'm away from the cliff as far as possible, so that the rock can just pass right in front of my face, right between my legs, fly down and explode below me. And I think about that moment and the apparent danger of it, and realize it might have been more dangerous clipped in. I might not have been able to get out of the way. I didn't have any restriction of movement. So it was a little bit more like when I'm riding a motorcycle, where, yeah, I'm more exposed, but I have a lot more control, a lot more visibility, and a lot more options. I come upon a 20-car pileup. A motorcyclist shouldn't get involved in that. If there's enough room for a person to walk around or through anything that's going on, a motorcycle should be able to get through there at 80 miles an hour. Well, depending, but you know what I mean. If you're paying attention, and if you've practiced, if you've done the work, if you've trained yourself, there is a moment at which you can actually take that greater apparent risk and secure for yourself greater safety, just because you are now the safety component. And that's a data factor that a lot of people don't think of, and I've always thought of with SOBs when I was really obsessed with SOBs. The crash test safety. As I matured, I realized, well, I have to wonder if some of the numbers that come out of how safe those have to do with the fact that the people who would care that the roll cage is there are also people who would care that somebody might accidentally turn left out of that corner and when they're not supposed to and cause an accident, and be anticipating that could happen. They're just going to be more conscientious drivers, like a motorcyclist. Maybe that's a factor, and that's some of what we're going to face here. There are greater risks. There are exposures. There's a little bit of, when I was sleeping last night, like, who's around me? What's that car door sound? Is somebody getting into my car? Am I threatened? And it's weird that a house would cause you to feel any differently, because I mean, there's nothing stopping people from stealing stuff off my porch. There's nothing stopping people from going right through my bedroom wall in a full house. It's thicker. I guess it feels like maybe people have closer access, but it feels, houses feel like cages now. It feels like, just like when you're in a car and your vision is blocked by pillars, you feel like you're in a shell, you falsely feel safe. Yes, it's safer than a bike, but it's not safer than a bike if your attitude is that it is. If your attitude is that I don't need to worry because I'm in this cage, I'm protected, you're net at far greater risk, because this thing's going to fuck up and kill you and other people. So I feel like maybe there's a lot of that to this too, where like motorcycling communities, people who are doing this are a little bit more exposed, a little bit more aware of vulnerabilities and their interdependence on, and I think that might bring about a different kind of life that's more sustainable on every level, not just the planet, but emotionally, psychologically, culturally, where we are not allowed to isolate ourselves so much. We're not allowed to pretend that it's safe when it isn't. Anyway, there it is. June 2nd, 2020, day 2, full-time RV. Holy shit. Thanks for joining.